The envelope arrived on my 30th birthday. Inside was an itemized invoice on my father's law firm letterhead. Cost of raising Jessica Harper, $347,892.16. At the bottom, in my father's precise handwriting, payment due within 30 days for services rendered to a failed investment. But 3 weeks later, my grandfather walked into my father's office with a briefcase. And what came out of that briefcase didn't just destroy my father's pride. It ended his career. If you've ever been made to feel like you weren't good enough, like everything you did was measured and found lacking, this story is for you. What happened next proved that sometimes the people who underestimate you the most are the ones who fall the hardest. The stories about standing up to family bullies matter to you. Hit that like button and subscribe. You won't want to miss how this unfolds. My name is Jessica Harper, and for 30 years, I've been my father's greatest disappointment. Not because I'm a criminal. Not because I'm cruel or lazy or destructive. But because I became a kindergarten teacher instead of a lawyer. Because I married a man who builds houses with his hands instead of a man who wears suits to courtrooms. Because I chose a life that made me happy instead of a life that made my father proud. My father, Thomas Harper, is a senior partner at Harper, Mitchell & Associates. It's one of those law firms where the marble floors echo when you walk and the secretaries wear heels that cost more than my monthly car payment. He's the kind of lawyer who wins cases that make the news, who plays golf with judges, who measures success in billable hours and client acquisitions. My older brother, Andrew, followed perfectly in his footsteps. Law school at Yale. Passed the bar on his first attempt. Junior partner at 32. Andrew drives a BMW, lives in a penthouse downtown, and brings a different, elegant girlfriend to every family dinner. My father looks at Andrew the way some people look at sunsets. Like he's witnessing something beautiful and rare. Then there's me. I went to state school. I got my teaching degree. I married Danny, a contractor I met when he was building an addition to my school's library. We live in a small 3-bedroom house with a mortgage and a vegetable garden. I drive a 7-year-old Honda. I spend my days with 5-year-olds, teaching them to read and tie their shoes and share crayons. My father has never, not once, told me he's proud of me. At family dinners, he asks Andrew about cases and strategies and partnerships. He asks me when I'm going to get a real job. When I got my master's degree in early childhood education, spending 3 years in night school while teaching full-time, my father's only comment was, "All that effort just to make $42,000 a year?" When Danny and I bought our house, a modest but beautiful bungalow that we've spent 5 years renovating together, my father walked through it once and said, "Well, at least the property value might appreciate." My mother passed away when I was 16. After that, my father became harder and more focused on achievement as the only measure of worth. Andrew thrived under that pressure. I withered. But I built a life anyway. A good life. A happy life. Danny and I have been married for 8 years. We host dinner parties where people actually laugh. We take camping trips to national parks. We have 2 rescue dogs and a yard full of tomato plants. My students write me letters that I keep in a box under my bed. Parents hug me at graduation and tell me I changed their child's life. I stopped trying to win my father's approval somewhere around year 25. Or at least I thought I had. My 30th birthday fell on a Saturday. Danny made me breakfast in bed. My best friend Carla took me out for lunch. We came home to find a FedEx envelope on the doorstep. Heavy cardstock. My father's law firm returns the address. I figured it was a birthday card. Maybe even a check. My father had sent checks before, small amounts with notes like, "Supplemental income for your lifestyle choices." I opened it standing in the kitchen while Danny unpacked groceries. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Law firm letterhead. And an itemized invoice. Cost of raising Jessica Marie Harper. The list was meticulous and terrifyingly detailed. Hospital delivery and postnatal care, $8,450. Diapers, formula, infant supplies, $1988 to $1994,200. Private preschool tuition, $1991 to $1993, $18,600. Elementary school expenses, tutoring, supplies, $1993 to $1999, $12,800. Orthodontics and dental care, $8,900. Clothing, shoes, accessories, age 0 to 18, $22,400. Family vacations allocated per child, $31,200. High school expenses, activities, sports, $15,700. College tuition, room, board, state school, $67,800. Vehicle purchase, 2012 Toyota, graduation gift, $18,500. Wedding contribution, $12,000. Miscellaneous birthday gifts, holidays and support, $28,150. Total investment in Jessica Harper, $347,892.16. At the bottom in my father's handwriting were 3 sentences that I'll never forget. Payment due within 30 days. This represents the full cost of raising an individual who failed to provide adequate return on investment. Consider this bill a final severance of financial and familial obligation. I stood in my kitchen holding that paper and I couldn't breathe. Danny looked up from the groceries. Jess? What's wrong? I couldn't speak. I just handed him the invoice. I watched his face change as he read it. Confusion and disbelief. Then fury so pure I actually stepped back. He invoiced you, Danny said, his voice shaking. Your own father invoiced you for being born. The paper trembled in my hands. Every number felt like a slap. Every line item was a reminder that my father had been keeping score my entire life. That every meal, every birthday present, every moment of my childhood had been logged as an expense. As an investment that hadn't paid off. I wasn't his daughter. I was a failed business venture. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at our kitchen table staring at that invoice until the words blurred. Danny tried to comfort me. He said things like, he's cruel, and you don't owe him anything, and we should burn this. But I couldn't stop reading it. Couldn't stop calculating. Couldn't stop feeling like maybe he was right. Maybe I had wasted his money. Maybe I should have been more. Been the daughter he wanted. At 3 a.m. I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my grandfather. My grandfather, William Harper, is 81 years old. He's my father's father, but the two men couldn't be more different. Grandpa William built Harper Construction from nothing. He started as a carpenter's apprentice at 16, worked his way up, and by 40 owned a company that built half the commercial buildings in our city. He's the reason my father could afford law school. The reason Andrew and I grew up in a big house. But Grandpa William retired at 65, sold the company and moved to a cabin 2 hours north. He spends his days fishing, woodworking and volunteering at a veterans center. He drives a pickup truck older than I am. He wears flannel shirts with the elbows worn through. My father is ashamed of him. Your grandfather had potential, my father once told me. He could have built an empire. Instead, he sold out and disappeared into the woods like some kind of hermit. But Grandpa William was the only person in my family who came to my college graduation. The only one who walked me down the aisle at my wedding because he insisted even though my father was there, stiff and silent in the third row. The only one who sends me hand-carved Christmas ornaments and calls every Sunday just to hear about my week. When he answered the phone at 3 a.m., his voice was alert immediately. Jessica? What's wrong? I couldn't even explain at first. I just cried. Deep, shaking sobs that made Danny hover anxiously, not knowing how to help. Take your time, sweetheart, Grandpa William said gently. When I finally got the words out, when I read him the invoice line by line, the silence on the other end was absolute. Then he said very quietly, I'm driving down tomorrow. Don't do anything until I get there. Grandpa, you don't have to. Jessica Marie, I'm driving down tomorrow. He hung up. The next 24 hours were torture. I went through the motions. Made breakfast. I tried to grade papers for my summer school class. Stared at the invoice that I'd left on the kitchen table like a venomous snake I couldn't bring myself to touch. Danny wanted to confront my father immediately. He paced our living room, furious, making plans. We could sue him for emotional distress. We could send this to the local news. We could pay him, I heard myself say. Danny stopped. What? We could pay him. My voice was hollow. We have some savings. We could take out a loan. We could. Jess, no. Danny knelt in front of me, gripping my hands. Absolutely not. You don't owe him this. You don't owe him anything. But the poison was already in my system. The idea that maybe if I just paid, if I just cleared the debt, I could be free. Maybe then I wouldn't be a failure anymore. I actually called the bank that afternoon. Asked about personal loan rates for $350,000. The loan officer was cheerful and helpful. Started running numbers. I was halfway through the application when Danny physically took the phone from my hand and hung up. "You're not doing this," he said, his voice breaking. "I won't let you destroy yourself trying to pay off a debt you never owed." I knew he was right. But God, the weight of that invoice felt like it was crushing my chest. That evening, Grandpa William pulled into our driveway in his ancient Ford pickup. He climbed out slowly, his carpenter's frame still solid despite his age, and pulled me into a hug that smelled like sawdust and Old Spice. "Show me," he said simply. We sat at the kitchen table. I slid the invoice across to him. Watched his face as he read every line. His expression didn't change. He read in complete silence. Then he folded the paper, put it in his shirt pocket, and looked at me with eyes that had suddenly gone very cold. "Your father," he said quietly, "has become someone I don't recognize. Grandpa, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have called you, I just didn't know what to." "Jessica." His voice was gentle but firm. "You did exactly right. This," he patted his pocket, "this is abuse. This is your father weaponizing every moment of your childhood and trying to make you pay for the crime of being yourself." But what if he's right? The words escaped before I could stop them. What if I wasted his money? What if I should have been? "Stop." Grandpa William's voice cracked like a whip. "You listen to me. You're a teacher. You spend every day shaping young minds, giving children the foundation they'll build their entire lives on. You're married to a good man who loves you. You own a home. You're happy. You've built a life of meaning and purpose and kindness." His eyes were bright with something that might have been tears. "Your father measures worth in dollars and status. He's so obsessed with winning that he forgot what he was supposed to be winning for. And now he's trying to destroy the one child who had the courage to choose differently." He stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "I'm going to see Thomas tomorrow. At his office. You're going to come with me." "Grandpa, I don't think." "You're coming with me," he repeated. "Because this ends tomorrow." That night I barely slept again. I kept imagining the confrontation. My father's cold dismissal. Grandpa William's fury. The inevitable explosion. What I didn't know was that Grandpa William had already made a phone call of his own. To someone my father hadn't spoken to in 15 years. And what that person was about to reveal would turn my father's perfect world into ash. We arrived at Harper, Mitchell and Associates at 10 a.m. on Monday morning. The building was everything my father valued. Glass and steel. Marble lobby. A receptionist so polished she looked like she'd been cast for the role. She smiled at Grandpa William with the kind of professional courtesy that barely masked condescension. "Do you have an appointment with Mr. Harper?" "No," Grandpa William said. "But tell Thomas his father is here. And he's not leaving until we talk." Something in his voice made her pick up the phone immediately. 3 minutes later, we were being escorted to my father's office on the 14th floor. The office was exactly what you'd expect. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Mahogany desk. Walls covered in framed degrees and awards and photographs of my father shaking hands with people who mattered. There was one family photo on his desk. Andrew graduated from law school. No pictures of me. My father stood when we entered. He was wearing one of his $2,000 suits, silver hair perfectly styled, expression controlled and neutral. "Dad," he said to Grandpa William. Then, barely glancing at me, "Jessica." "Thomas." Grandpa William's voice was ice. "Sit down." My father's jaw tightened, but he sat. I stood near the door, my heart hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. Grandpa William reached into his jacket and pulled out the invoice. Set it on my father's desk. "Explain this." My father didn't even look at it. "It's self-explanatory. Jessica has made it clear through her life choices that she doesn't value the investment I made in her future. I'm simply requesting reimbursement." Requesting reimbursement. Grandpa William's voice was dangerously quiet. "For raising your daughter. For raising an individual who squandered every opportunity one provided. She's a teacher, Thomas. She helps children learn to read. She makes $42,000 a year." My father's voice was clipped. "With a master's degree. That's not success. That's a failure to launch." I felt the words hit me like physical blows. Even knowing they were coming, even after a lifetime of this, they still hurt. But Grandpa William's expression didn't change. You think success is measured in salary, he said. You think worth is measured in status. I think competence is measured in achievement, my father countered. Jessica had every advantage. Private school, college fund, professional connections. She chose to waste all of it on a career with no growth potential, married a contractor and settled into a life of aggressive mediocrity. Danny is a good man, I said, my voice shaking. He owns his own business. He employs 12 people. He builds beautiful things. My father finally looked at me. He works with his hands, Jessica. That's not a career. That's a job. You mean like me? Grandpa William asked softly. My father's expression flickered. Just for a second. You sold your company. You could have built an empire. You chose to quit. I chose to live. Grandpa William pulled a chair and sat down without being invited. I chose to spend my time with people I love instead of clients I'm billing. I chose happiness over status. Just like Jessica did. And that, my father said coldly, is why neither of you will ever be exceptional. The words hung in the air like poison. Grandpa William reached into his jacket again. This time he pulled out a different envelope. Older. Yellowed at the edges. Do you remember your mother, Thomas? My father went very still. What does that have to do with? Your mother, Helen. Do you remember her? Of course I remember her. Do you remember how she died? I didn't know this story. My father never talked about his mother. She died when he was in college, long before I was born. Heart attack, my father said stiffly. She died of a heart attack when I was 19. She died of a broken heart, Grandpa William corrected quietly. Because her son told her that going to nursing school instead of medical school made her a failure. The room went absolutely silent. You were 18, Grandpa William continued. Home for Christmas break from your first year at Harvard. Your mother had just finished her nursing degree at 42 years old. She was so proud. She'd worked nights at the hospital as an aide while raising you, saving every penny for her own education. His voice was steady but his hands were shaking. She made a special dinner to celebrate. She wanted to tell you about the pediatric ward where she'd been hired. And you told her that she'd wasted her time on an inferior profession. That real doctors saved lives and nurses just followed orders. My father's face had gone white. She cried for 3 days, Grandpa William said. I begged her to ignore you, told her you were young and arrogant and didn't understand. But 6 months later she had a massive heart attack at work. The doctors said it was stress-induced. That her heart had been weakening for months. He opened the envelope and pulled out a letter. The paper was so old it was almost transparent. She wrote you this letter a week before she died. She never sent it. I found it on her desk after the funeral. He began to read. Dear Thomas, I need you to understand something. I didn't become a nurse because I failed to become a doctor. I became a nurse because I wanted to hold children's hands when they're scared. Because I wanted to sit with families in their darkest moments. Because I wanted to care, not just cure. I'm sorry if that disappoints you. I'm sorry if you think I'm not exceptional. But I'm not sorry for the choice I made. I hope someday you'll understand that there are many ways to be successful, and very few of them involve making the people you love feel small. With love always, Mom. The silence after he finished was crushing. My father sat frozen. His face was the color of ash. You've become the thing that killed your mother, Grandpa William said softly. You've turned into a man who measures love in dollars and mistakes kindness for weakness. He stood up. Here's what's going to happen, Thomas. You're going to tear up that invoice. You're going to call Jessica tonight and apologize. And you're going to spend the rest of your life making this right. And if I don't? My father's voice was barely a whisper. Grandpa William pulled out one more envelope. This one was crisp. Legal-sized. Then I'm filing a lawsuit against you for financial elder abuse. Because 3 months ago, you convinced me to sign over power of attorney for my medical care. You told me it was for my protection as I aged. My father's eyes went wide. But last week I spoke with an attorney. Found out that you've been using that power of attorney to access my accounts. That you've transferred $89,000 from my retirement fund into an investment account under your control. That was a legitimate investment strategy, my father said, his voice rising. I was protecting your assets from what, Thomas? From me spending my own money? Grandpa William's voice was like iron. I didn't authorize those transfers. I didn't even know about them until my accountant noticed the discrepancies. He set the legal envelope on the desk. This is a lawsuit for theft, financial exploitation, and breach of fiduciary duty. My attorney says it's an open and shut case. You'll lose your license to practice law. You'll lose your partnership. And you'll go to prison. My father stood up so fast his chair toppled backward. You wouldn't. I already have, Grandpa William said quietly. The papers are filed. They'll be served tomorrow morning unless I call my attorney and tell him to withdraw the complaint. The room felt like all the oxygen had been sucked out. So here's your choice, Thomas. You apologize to your daughter. You tear up that disgusting invoice. You go to therapy and you deal with whatever is broken inside you that makes you treat your family like business transactions. And I withdraw the lawsuit. He picked up the invoice and tore it in half. Then into quarters. Let the pieces flutter onto my father's mahogany desk. Or you can let your pride destroy you. Just like it destroyed your mother. My father stood behind his desk, trembling with rage or shock or maybe both. You can't do this, he whispered. I already did, Grandpa William said. The question is what you're going to do about it. I could fight this. I have resources. I have. You have 24 hours before those documents become public record, Grandpa William interrupted. And when they do, every client of Harper, Mitchell and Associates is going to see that one of the senior partners stole from his own elderly father. How long do you think this firm will keep you after that? My father looked at me for the first time with something other than contempt. It was desperation. Jessica, you can't let him do this. I'm your father. For 30 years I'd been waiting for my father to see me. Really see me. To acknowledge that I had value, that my choices mattered, that I was enough. This wasn't how I'd imagined it would happen. You sent me an invoice for being born, I said quietly. You itemized my childhood like a business expense. You called me a failed investment. My voice broke. I spent my whole life trying to make you proud. And the only time you're looking at me, really looking at me, is when you need something. The tears came then. I couldn't stop them. I love my job. I love my husband. I love my life. And I'm sorry that's not good enough for you. I'm sorry I'm not Andrew. I'm sorry I'm not the daughter you wanted. I took a shaking breath. But I'm not going to save you from the consequences of your own cruelty. I turned and walked toward the door. Jessica, wait. Goodbye, Dad. I left. I walked past the mahogany and marble and perfectly polished receptionist. Took the elevator down 14 floors. I walked out into the sunshine. Grandpa William followed me. Didn't say anything. Just stood next to me while I cried on the sidewalk outside my father's building. Did you really file a lawsuit? Asked finally. Every word was true, he said. Thomas has been moving my money around for months. My accountant caught it during a routine audit. I confronted him about it last week. He said he was optimizing my portfolio. What did you say? I told him I'm 81 years old and I don't need optimization. I need my son to stop treating me like an asset. He put his arm around my shoulders. When you called me at 3 a.m. crying about that invoice, I knew Thomas had finally crossed a line he couldn't come back from. So I made a choice. What choice? To protect my granddaughter instead of my son. We stood there for a long time. Eventually Danny pulled up. He'd been waiting at a coffee shop nearby, giving me space but staying close. How did it go? He asked. I looked at Grandpa William. I think it went exactly how it needed to go, he said. That was Monday. Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. my father called. I almost didn't answer. But Danny squeezed my hand and I picked up. Jessica. My father's voice was different. Smaller. I'm calling to apologize. I didn't say anything. What I did was unforgivable. The invoice. The things I said. The way I've treated you your entire life. He paused. I could hear him breathing. Your grandfather told me about the letter. The one from my mother. I'd never read it before. I didn't know it existed. Another pause. I've been angry at her my whole life for choosing nursing. For not being more ambitious. For dying and leaving me. And I've taken that anger out on you. His voice cracked. Because you remind me of her. You chose a caring profession over a prestigious one. You chose happiness over achievement. And every time I look at you, I see her and I see my failure to appreciate what she was trying to teach me. I sat down on my kitchen floor, the phone pressed to my ear. I'm starting therapy, my father said. Dr. Morrison. She specializes in family dynamics and grief. I'm going twice a week. Okay, I whispered. I need you to know that you don't owe me anything. Not money. Not forgiveness. Not a relationship. I destroyed that. I destroyed us. And if you never want to speak to me again, I'll understand. Dad. But I'm going to do the work anyway. I'm going to figure out why I became this person. And I'm going to try to be better. He took a shaking breath. I'm proud of you, Jessica. I should have said that every day of your life. I'm proud that you're a teacher. I'm proud that you married a man who loves you. I'm proud that you chose happiness. I was crying so hard I couldn't speak. I love you, my father said. I'm sorry it took me 30 years to say it. He hung up. I sat on my kitchen floor and sobbed. Danny held me. The dogs licked my face. And for the first time in my life, I felt the weight of my father's disappointment lift. 3 months later, my father came to my school. It was Parent Appreciation Day. Students were reading poems they'd written about the adults in their lives. My father sat in a tiny kindergarten chair, his knees almost to his chest, and listened to 5-year-olds talk about their moms and dads and grandparents. One little girl, Emma, read a poem about me. Mrs. Harper teaches us to read. She has a garden full of seeds. She says we're all important even when we're small. She says being kind is the best gift of all. When the presentation ended, my father approached me. She's right, he said quietly. Being kind is the best gift. He looked around at the classroom. The colorful posters. The reading corner with its pile of pillows. The wall of student artwork. This is important work, Jessica. This is where it all starts. Where children learn that they matter. That they're seen. His eyes were bright. I wish someone had taught me that when I was 5. We didn't hug. It wasn't that kind of moment yet. But when he left, he turned back at the door. Thank you for not giving up on me. Even when I gave up on you. Grandpa William did withdraw the lawsuit. But only after my father paid back every penny he'd taken with interest and transferred power of attorney to an independent third party. Andrew found out about everything from my father. He called me, furious that I'd humiliated the family by involving Grandpa William. I told him I loved him, but I couldn't talk to him until he understood why sending an invoice to your daughter was abuse, not accountability. He hasn't called back yet. But I hope someday he will. My father and I are rebuilding. Foley. He comes to dinner once a month. He's awkward with Danny but trying. He asks about my students. He listens when I talk about my work. Last week he brought me something. It was a framed certificate. An honorary award from the State Teachers Association recognizing my work with at-risk kindergartners. I had this made, he said. I know you didn't apply for it. But I spoke to your principal. He told me about the reading program you started. How do you stay late 3 days a week to help struggling students? He hung it on my living room wall. I want everyone who comes into your home to know what you've accomplished. I cried. Of course I cried. Because that certificate wasn't really about teaching. It was about my father finally learning to measure success in something other than money. The invoice is gone. Torn into pieces and thrown away. But I kept one piece. The bottom corner. Where my father had written failed investment. I keep it in my wallet. Not because I want to remember the pain. But because I want to remember the moment I realized that my worth was never dependent on his approval. I am not a failed investment. I'm a woman who chose to measure success in laughter and kindness and small moments of connection. In children who learned to read because I sat with them patiently. In a marriage built on respect and joy. In a life that's smaller than my father's but infinitely richer. And my father is learning that too. He's not healed. 30 years of measuring worth in status and achievement doesn't disappear in a few months. But he's trying. He's doing the work. He's learning to see value in things that can't be invoiced. That's all I can ask for. Grandpa William says forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing not to let the past hold your future hostage. I'm choosing to give my father a chance to be better. But I'm also choosing to protect myself. To know my worth. To never again let someone make me feel like I have to pay for the crime of being myself. If you've stayed with me until the end of this story, thank you. I know it was long. I know it was heavy. But I wanted you to understand that sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who are hurting themselves. That doesn't excuse what they do. But it helps explain it. And sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone. giving them the chance to see what they almost lost. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt like you weren't enough, leave a comment below. Tell me your story. Tell me how you found your worth. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, who's struggling under the weight of someone else's expectations, share this video with them. Sometimes knowing you're not alone is the first step toward freedom. Hit that subscribe button for more stories about standing up, speaking out, and refusing to be small. I'll see you in the next one.